I can tell you this is a bit of banter. Gail was so stressed beforehand, and today, here we are. So you went live. Well done, firstly, for Bell Equipment. Massive achievement. I think it's the second rise in South Africa that went live. So that took guts, I think. What were the top 3 challenges that you faced during the project that you want to share with us?
Thanks, Dion. Yes, we successfully went live on the 17th of April. It was actually a pretty smooth go live, the actual go live itself, but the lead up, yes, there was a few tears, I think, along the way. I think in terms of some of the challenges and considerations, I'll highlight 3. Firstly, I think what we did well was we elected a land safely approach. So So we chose not to take on any additional functionality or any additional features. What we did was we made sure that we mandatory changes, as well as just a handful of features to give the users or to showcase some of the system that we'd invested in. Do you want to try that?
No, I want to. Somebody, can you maybe just give us another one of these, please? Right, I'm going to do Debbie quickly. Let's see. Debbie, the decision-making process at Max Steel was quite quick. So can you maybe tell us about that? And now I press the record button.
As well. But really, Dion, I think for us, we probably would have, my intention was to convert later, not sooner. But I think, honestly, for us, not realizing that a brownfields conversion was possible and that like for like and all custom code preserved on conversion was possible. I just do think that presented itself into a very easy and simple business case, because what we did is, as I said, is really risk adverse, and it is a technical conversion, and it just made the business case all that easy, that it wasn't really complex at all. And I think also one of the big benefits, though, Dion, and I must say, is definitely the conversion methodology, and in terms of the iterations and how we go about doing it, which again is risk adverse. And I think that's put the business really at ease. So maybe I've simplified it too much, but that's why. And also, let me also say the decision had to be made quickly, because it was for us and probably for SAP the last quarter of 2023. And so everyone was rushing to get their budgets done, no pricing increase, and we had a board meeting in that November. So it made it that easy, and it was really a really simple business case in our perspective to put together.
Excellent, thank you.
Excellent. John, yours wasn't quick. Trust me, I know. It was a very long but very detailed process, where you've gone through many iterations. You spoke about a POC earlier, proof of concept. You spoke about a Discover program, as I've discussed in the beginning. But there were lots of cost considerations and things that you as a business had to consider and that were critical for you as Polyoak to decide on. Can you maybe just share that with us?
Yeah, I think Dion and Andrew struck, and Andrew also quite frustrated at your time. We really went into deep with regards. Wanted to make sure that the costs and that the complete costs were covered and that they were all understood. So also it was around about, I think, Gail was probably more daring than us. We didn't go RISE. It was in November when we were looking at the pricing. We were sort of led to believe that RISE was the only option for us to go. And the more questions that we had, the answers led to more questions. So there was also, sorry SAP, but we really did feel rushed in December to make that decision, which actually was very frustrating. So we only decided at the end of January which route to go, and we didn't go RISE. So we've gone perpetual. And for the business case, we had to do a 5-year projection of the costs, and it actually worked out for us. Even in 5 years' time, if we do move to RISE, we feel like we've made the right decision there, especially around the database, not knowing what the database size would be. I mean, there are tools you can run, and we were concerned about having all our eggs in one basket with SAP, not paying, we used to paying Microsoft for our Azure costs and felt more in control of that ourselves. Also, a bit aware, something that came out that we needed to be aware was the duplication of maintenance. You don't realize that while you're running the project, the longer the timeline is, you're actually paying maintenance twice. So we made sure that we got that as tight as possible. So, Dion, we're still trusting for the 15th of October. And then also, we outsource most of our SAP work to Dimension Data. So we got managed services for a lot of things. And we wanted to make sure that we knew what the managed service was going to look like post-go live, because it is a different environment. The actual conversion project cost, we didn't spend much time around that, Dion, so there was we accepted what it was and it made sense. And then yes, we did a POC, which was very, very beneficial. We learned a lot from that. I think it showed us what effort would be involved. Also, our major custom code just worked. So as much custom code as we had, we didn't have to do much to get it to work. Also saw the database speed firsthand, and that the downtime was manageable. I mean, the last thing of the business case, the S4 Discover was definitely one of the best things that we did. Even if we didn't do the conversion, the S4 Discover got the business so involved. We identified pain points, things that could be addressed in S4 or in our current system. Also got people into project mode, and you could just got the whole energy going. And I think that's going to be a big advantage for us in the change management side of things. Good.
Rob, you're always different. Royal Eswatini took a completely different turn. You spoke about it earlier, but there's a very good reason for that and why you did that. And I must be honest, I started at the time, and my ex-colleague there, we were very sure this is going to be a Discover that leads to a traditional brownfields conversion, and then we ran into Rob Coombe. So before you tell us what you did and why did Royal Eswatini take that route, I also want you to tell us about the 5 C's at Royal Eswatini. Yes, and I'm going to do it to you. So please tell us the it also played in your decision.
Thank you. So, question first, 5 C's, if I get it out. So everybody within IT, including my PA, had to get into BTP to the decision before about going to public cloud. The energy that created within the IT team was amazing. They felt so much more involved in the project, in the process, and so on. I was looking on my phone. Decision, the discovery we used to convert. One of them was the business. We did it last time. My MD, I hate it when he does. He said it was like diving into water. Big bang. I keep into a pool, but we forgot to learn how to swim. I prefer that one. The business said no big bang. They wanted to be able to do it. They wanted to de-risk. They wanted to go slowly. So that's why we've gone, even though it's we use all these colors, what's it? Greenfield. We're starting from scratch. The public cloud for us is fairly straightforward in terms of IT is not a differentiator. The sugar that you drink, you don't care whether I've got a nice app or not about it. Doesn't exist. So let's meet our strategy by doing things like decreasing our costs, by keeping simplicity. The clean core does make a massive difference. There are ways and means that we can get around it. There are some processes which we can't do in public cloud, but SAP has the technology for us to do it. We're using the BTP stack. It's going, so that's kind of why we did it.
Why did you choose RISE? And when you went live, tell us about your data center, because your data center is not where we would think it is, Was there any latency issues during go live?
Thanks, Dion. So Bell chose to go with the Frankfurt data center. So Bell is a global organization, so it's not so unusual for us to have chosen Frankfurt as our data center. We have presence in Germany. We did that to mitigate some of the local grid-related risk that there was considered at the time. When we went live, we did initially think that there might be some latency-related risk or user experience issues related to that, but to be perfectly honest, we didn't have any negative experience on Go Live, and actually it's turned out a perfectly good decision for us. Thanks.
I'm going to ask you the same question, but let's just quickly hear the same question to Debbie.
Did you consider SAP RISE? Did you have options with your existing licenses and maybe shelfware?
Yes, but Dion, what I must also be honest here is we accepted RISE because, and I think it was much like, John, maybe this shouldn't come into it, but where you could not actually get a costing of what SAP for HANA would cost on-prem. That was the most difficult thing. So really the only option was the draw card was RISE, but we got a hybrid environment anyway. So I think the business case, we had a 40% saving in licenses, which we'd have paid for the last 9 years. And honestly, if we didn't actually move S4, we would have continued to pay for things that we didn't use. So definitely 40% of our maintenance costing was credited towards S4 RISE, and over the 5-year period, it was really more or less break even. Whether we're still going to realize that, or lesson learned, but yes, that's the reason.
It's funny, I just remember now when I realized that in June of 2020, we migrated from our on-prem server ECC to Azure with Dimension Data, so in the middle of the start of COVID. And it was absolutely seamless. So I think we were also at an advantage because we didn't have that migration into the cloud at the same time as going onto S4. So we're quite familiar with that environment. Also in the project now, what we've been made very aware of, and I think everyone needs to be careful, is the costs you really need to manage those Azure costs because we've just spun up a sandbox environment in S4, which might only be needed in 3 weeks' time, but it's running, and then when you look at that cost, it's like switch the server on when you need it. So we've learned a lot along the way with that, and I think it'll help us. Yeah, and also not knowing the database size, which I mentioned before. But yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the project. So in Max Steel's case with Debbie, they're in full swing. They're about a month ahead of you. But let's just hear from Debbie's perspective the learnings to date. So that, yes, the project hasn't gone live yet, but they've learned some things, and bad things, good things. So let's just hear quickly from Debbie, and then we'll ask the same question in terms of the go live and all of the things that you experienced.
Your project's in full motion. Any learnings that you already have to share? So you're not, as Bell Equipment have gone live at Max Steel, but there probably are some learnings already that you've seen that you could share perhaps with us. And maybe I'm thinking of custom code or simplification. Have you got anything to share?
Well, the reality is for me, and you always try to, get me to manage or try and manage my expectations, but really first run was for me as important as the last. And so we have had our first run, and I've had a large share of disappointments in that run, but really also large share of positiveness coming through. So unlike Bell, what our issue was the fact that we actually didn't have an express route link. So we have so many third-party integrations happening, also basically a hybrid now of Azure and our basic hosting environment. And man, it's just been an inordinate amount of work to try and get the comms going between Azure and this and our basic hosting environment. So with really not much success, because we only had a week really to test this instance. So that is a lesson learned for us. So we would definitely make sure, even at round 2, we actually have invested in that express link, and we don't have to do too much manual intervention there. But positive already, you know, the one thing I said, my first objective was look and feel, and that the system, as the user on the last day, that we took the system from the user and did a hard close, that the next day coming in, would they see any difference? You know, two things, John. One of the things with the HANA database was incredible, and secondly, for the most part, the look and feel is there. So I breathe with relief in terms of the change management for now, because I'll deal with Fiori on day 2. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Excellent. So I think our last question, we're watching the time, maybe we can take a question or two from the floor. What would you do different going Fiori? We had a journey on Fiori. Maybe touch on that.
Okay, so I will combine. I didn't get all the way through my challenges and considerations before we had our mic issue, but so maybe, Dion, let me just explain. Firstly, the things we did well. Land safely approach, no additional functionality barring the Fiori. Our detailed end-to-end testing that we undertook, I think that was fundamental to our success. We identified things over and above the simplification items in that process. I'd say, lastly, in terms of RISE and some of the uncertainties that we had around it, Fiori was one of them, and how to go about it. But also, you know, just from a RISE perspective, how many parties were involved, language barriers, uncertainty of the technical process, and it took a lot of detail and management and oversight, and also oversight with the SAP Customer Care Program to get us to this point. But maybe what I can say as the example that you are referring to with the Fioris, and I think what you're referring to is when we established that there were 2,700 Fioris that were available to us, and you know, if it's being a lady, I want them all. So I said to Dion, you know, yes, we would like all of them, but not meaning, you know, not necessarily switch them all at once, but just the ability or the availability of all of that functionality that we can leverage off going forward. So we went live with 30 Fiori apps, and it really has brought a lot of interest and excitement in the tool that we have invested in. So yeah, we haven't quite got to the 2,700, Dion, but we survived the 30, so that's good.
Thank you. John, same on your side. Like I said, you're lagging about 4 weeks behind Max Steel, so it's 2 projects running concurrently. So it does put strain on us and as an organization, but it's good, it keeps us going. Any learnings thus far and experiences that you've had with the project at this stage?
Yes, so Tracy, my colleague sitting over there, who's the project manager, she probably would be able to answer this better than I would, but I've actually been surprised how it's been pretty seamless at this stage, but the hasn't been as involved yet. We next week on the 12th of, I mean, thanks to stories and how important the testing part is, and never to underestimate that. So we'll definitely, also Ben mentioned in his previous session around change management, we also don't underestimate that by any means. And I think through, as I mentioned before, the POC and the business, the S4 Discover really helped us, you know, get that in full swing.
Last question, and then we're going to open for the floor. Rob, again, an interesting journey. So it's public cloud, for those of you who didn't hear what he said earlier. It's taking ECC, switching components of ECC off, and going to public cloud. And that's a long journey. But behind that journey is obviously a lot of technical things. There's agricultural innovation stuff that's coming from SAP and change management. Do you want to maybe just tell us about that?
Thanks. So I was saying we started this journey in 2019. We've been going to date. We're live with one process, one component. We've done all that work. We spent all that money. I've still spent more money on change management than on consulting. So the guy had said yesterday, you know, earlier, so Sven saying, you know, do get your change manager 100%. I'm not too sure the change management team are somewhere around. Hopefully they're not listening to me, but they've done a fantastic job. I think that's key. Has to be done. We started with Exco. Executives took them away off-site, couple of days, good meals, whatever. That was the start. We took we took the leadership from manufacturing away. Same thing. So yeah, a lot of key work on change management. But apart from that, public cloud, the discussion about Fiori, you don't have any choice. We've got all 2,700 apps. If I log in, because I've got all of them, it takes about 10 minutes for the screen to fire up. So be careful what roles you give yourself. So you can have them all, but you pay. So yeah, so from a technology perspective, then we're pretty blue. With BTP, somebody said to me yesterday, what's BTP? With the technology stack that SAP has in the background supporting the public cloud, we don't really need to go anywhere else. It's there, it's available. We use the integration suite there, 7 times more efficient and cheaper to implement than the old POPI. That's been brilliant. We use SAC, we're doing the analytics, we've got that. We're building our own apps with SAP Build. SAP have launched an agriculture product, which is also coming through BTP. We're using that one. So it's because it all works so well together. And there are big advantages to being a good SAP customer. We get incredible support from them, all the way to the top. We made some silly mistakes. You can come tomorrow to hear about those. But they've supported us all the way through, and Dimension Data have supported us all the way through. So yeah, that's our journey. We're doing it process by process. I think that's what Dion was alluding to. I asked somebody else what they're doing. Most people go finance first. We said nope. The value is not in finance, the value is in the other products. We went plant maintenance first, we're going agriculture, that's where the next value is for us as a business, and then we'll do finance as the third phase. Makes it tricky because now we've got a system of record and a system of I don't know what we call the S4, we'll have to find a name for it, but where the guys are working. But the system of record from an accounting perspective has to be the S4. So it's been interesting, but a really good journey, and we're enjoying it, so yeah.
Thanks so much. I think that's the end of our session, so we could maybe take 1 or 2 questions for the panel. You'll notice we didn't spend a lot of time on technical stuff because the 10 steps to S4 actually handles that. We really wanted to talk about learnings. Is that Wesley? Can we give a mic there, please?
Thank you, Dion.
Oh, I'm scared. Hello. Okay. Hi, panel. Cyan from Anglo Gold Ashanti. Thank you for your talk. It was really interesting. What I wanted to know is, there's a perception that from a cost point of view, you're almost looking at, what you paid to implement ECC, you're going to be paying again for SAP HANA. Besides the technical, you have to move over by a certain date, what was the other value drivers that you could put in to say, this is why we need to do this, and this is why we should go on this journey?
Any specific panel member? Can I just choose? John.
I mean, this is a scary answer, but absolutely it cost us quite a bit more than the original implementation. So it was quite scary when we presented the business case to be able to say that we're really just moving from ECC to S4. We had to convince the business that post-go live, that all the pain points that had been identified, that we would find business value in them. So I think there's going to be more pressure on us in the business after we go live so that we can really prove that there has been benefit. But yeah, I mean, the costs were, I think, Debbie, if Debbie was here to answer around the shelfware side of things, it made absolute sense for them to go RISE because they were paying for licenses but we didn't have a situation like that. Hope that answers.
Any more? Come on, you can't get them. Yeah. You can't let them off that quickly.
Is it afternoon already? Good afternoon. My name is Gugu Musime from the city of Joburg. I think, I can't remember who it was, spoke about the choice of the cloud. I think that's where it becomes important to us to say, because we're also on the journey, to say what modules do we put on the cloud and what do we remain on-prem. Considering the organization that we are running, we have to more like go private cloud more than public to protect the citizens' data. So how did you make that choice of to say this particular modules will go on cloud, these ones would remain on-prem, or are you fully cloud-based? Thank you.
Hi, so for us, it's pretty simple in terms of the things that we needed to keep the business running. Everything you need to keep the business running, but those things that are very proprietary and need to be kept on premise or kept running, we did, and that's very small for us. It's a very low number. It's basically the lab system for the factory, so we know what we should be running and setting on the factory. So that's something that keeps going. That we'll leave behind, and then integrate the data from there into S4. Everything else is going onto S4. So the lab things, the things that are there hands-on every day, are staying with us. But that, yeah, even then that might be looked at in the future. I don't think it's a restriction. I hear what you're saying in terms of protecting data. For us, I think, well, SAP can do it better than we can. That's our view as well. So that's one of the reasons why we've moved everything we can to the cloud.
And you're also in Frankfurt?
We're also in Frankfurt, yeah.
This was it.
Yeah.
Any more? We're over time, but more?
Thank you so much. Learning from your experience, what are some of the factors which we need to consider, especially us in public sector, in terms of choice of an implementation partner? Thank you.
You want to try that?
Okay. Sorry, so I wasn't so very clear on your question. You want to know the factors in considering RISE or? Considering an implementation partner. Okay, so we looked at the partner that had experience previously. I think that was one of our main factors, as well as we looked at cost. So there weren't too many that had done a RISE migration, but obviously there are partners that can leverage off their international expertise as well. So we really did look for, because this wasn't a normal implementation, it was a migration, so it was very different to what we're used to. So we looked for somebody that did have expertise in that area. Okay.
Any more? Are we done? Oh, there's one. We're going to keep you here until 5 o'clock.
Good afternoon. My name is Nakisani. I'm actually from the Road Accident Fund. So my question, I'm not sure if it's really relevant, but we actually in the process of migrating from on-premises to the cloud. So the plan was the lift and shift, but in the process, we actually planning to go RISE with SAP to take our current ECC as it is, before converting it to S4. So what advice would you give? Is that a good move, or do we rather wait and do the conversion, S4 conversion? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, we did that. We moved our ECC environment into Azure, as I said, in June 2020, and it was absolutely seamless. But I don't know if, because it was so seamless, did we really need to do that? We could have probably done it at the same time and saved the cost of that project. But it is hard to say, because if we'd had issues with migrating our on-prem into Azure, then I would have been more nervous about having done it in one step. But it really was, I mean, I'm not advertising for DD, but they did it, and it was a very well-run project as well. And to answer the other question as well, I mean, because that sort of led us towards getting DD to do the actual project.
I think we can call it now. I guess the next crew is coming in. I want to say thank you again to the panel, and the experience that you've shared today, you would have noticed again, it's not technical, but it's real, true life experience from a customer perspective. Thank you very much.